Hi guys and welcome to another lookup video. Today we have Espira with us. Hello.
Hey there, thanks for having me.
So yeah, we're having a Europe to Canada conversation, so that's actually pretty fine. Um, Today we're showcasing Espira's deck list with the Janemba deck profile, and I will be showcasing my Janemba deck profile. After which, and after the sponsor messages, and after everything else that we discuss, you will be able to see our clash on his video and on his channel. So first the sponsor messages, then everything else.
Card Market is Europe's largest platform for all TCGs. Always find the right cards by buying and selling them across Europe with other players and collectors. Be it singles, boosters, booster boxes, or any other accessories, you name it. Card Market is the place to get them safely, securely, and readily available.
Welcome back. And now I'm going to ask you, why Soul Striker and why Janemba?
So there's multiple aspects to it. Janemba being this amazing archetype that's generic in its leader selection, which means you can really go any way about it. I've seen your Vegito build. There's the Soul Striker build I worked on. I know a lot of people have tried many different things like Goku Black and even Hit in a different color, and just because of how flexible the whole archetype is. And I really thought Soul Striker provided that great middle ground between having the aggression to be able to punch your opponent in the face, especially with the untapping, which really allows you to extend your plays, but having the benefit that, you know what, if we need to play a slower game, then that means we can lean back on what Blue was doing before the Janemba archetype, which means, you know, Soul Striker can awaken with an alt awaken with the unison. It can play a slower game plan with some God Sealing. We have the great defenses in terms of Dimension Magics and Hatchak, and I think that's that middle ground that really allows it to strive. You know, early on in the format, we were seeing a lot of heavy aggression, a lot of people going in full combo, just the Janemba chain, and if I don't kill you, we don't get there. And you know, that works early on while people are still trying to figure out what decks are trying to do. But with the amount of floodgates that there are in the game right now between Violent Rays, you know, in blue there's like the Prospects, in green you have Dormant Potential. I think if you commit too hard to the aggro plan, you let yourself open to being punished. And blue does really well at being able to mitigate that with things like the free negates, the dimensions, the Hatchak, and all that. So I thought Soul Striker really served as a wonderful middle ground of being able to extend your aggro, or if your aggro doesn't get there, having the ability to pull back, play that strong control-ish type of game, and push for a later mid-range plan. And I think that nice balance is kind of what really made me decide to stick with that deck. And then just, I think the aggro is amazing. I think blue has the ability between beans, the leaders, and all that to really be able to extend their aggro the way other decks can't, which really made it a fun selection to merge the two together.
Yeah, one of the cool things was that Janemba, the Bewitching Blow actually is 19k, so he actually is better than the Violent Rays because they can negate one of the swings, but they can only prevent you from going to the 4-drop. And then when you go to the 4-drop, you basically let him go camping for a turn before he can do actually anything else. Yeah, yeah, it prevents you playing beans, but then again, the only thing that I decided for me not playing Soul Striker was I did not know what to do with all of the energies. So if my leader would swing the 2 extra energy, what would I actually do with it? I wouldn't arrival. I mean, I can see that you're actually compensating it with the Goku and Hit, so you can do something on on your opponent's turn. But for me, it was like, yeah, you should just swing and then deprive him of a lot of the resources. So after which, yeah, you don't need any energy. You're only 1 energy when you ramp with the Zeno is for the blocker, and then you will just withstand the energy and go from there. One of the other cool things about the Janemba is it's critical.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen it so many times with like the Broly swap decks and, you know, the Green Gohan decks for the past, that if you can amass a lot of critical attacks, right, it's multiple critical attacks, it's putting your opponent in awkward situations. It's really great because you're forcing them to use resources one way or another. They're either not going to get hand advantage from their life, or they're not getting it from their hand, and sometimes both, depending on how you can line it up, which is really sweet.
What I see in your build is only 2 baby unisons, so they're the only unisons you have. You don't have even God Sealing technique trunks. Oh yeah, I have 2 of them, but not in a prevalent manner that it's actually needed. So what made you make that decision? Because he has an alternative awakening skill, the unison I mean, but what, you awaken basically with the combo attack Janemba?
Yeah, for the most part. I was running a less aggressive version beforehand where it was even more mid-range. So I was still running the Janemba chain, but the Psyche Demon and combo attack I left out of the deck, and that's where I had four babies, I had more Dimension Magics, I had more God Ceilings, and that played way more mid-range with the option to go with the Janemba chain, which actually did very well. But what I found with that version was that it felt like the deck was doing nothing on turn one, turn two, like Soul Striker tends to do, right? Soul Striker, turn one, maybe you play a cantrip. Turn two, if you combo away a ape, you're able to draw a couple of cards. And then on turn three is really when this gas starts pressing. And while it worked out, and I actually ended up going X1 the last time I played at locals, I realized that I really want to have a bit more progressive game plan. Which is where I decided to take in the Psyche Demon and combo attack. So this version, while still mid-rangey, because we do still run a number of cards that are mid-range, does lean more aggressive to make it harder for our opponents to try and keep up with us in game pace. So especially since if we do turbo out our Awaken, where on turn two we're at 4 life and we get the untap shenanigans, we can actually extend a lot of our aggression in a way that can make it really tough on our opponent.
How did your people?
Those two things.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about it. How did your people at the locals actually react to the deck? Did they know how to behave against it, or did they kind of, I don't know, go in the scholarly way of just poking you and seeing what will happen?
At first, they tried poking me, but what was the benefit of running a more mid-range version was the fact that they thought I was the full-out aggressive version. There were a couple of people at the locals who ran the full-blow aggression, and they were caught off guard when they realized that I wasn't really committing 100% to the aggro, and I had things like, at one point they were trying to control me, so I'm like, okay, you want to play the control game? I dropped the baby, I started drawing cards, and eventually I was able to set up the wins with the way Blue typically does, using the counter ape and stuff like that. So it was really a good mesh of, hey, I can press the aggression, I can make it really tough for you, I'm going to give you a hard time. But at the same time, if you try and play funny with me in a way that, because you think you know what I'm doing, fine, I'll just flip what my deck is doing and I'm going to do it completely differently. So I think having that mesh of both really means that your opponents can be kept up on your toes, because sure, I might aggro you Janembas, or I just might wait till turn 4, play a Booney, and hey, do you remember that Blue plays a Booney? Because I do.
Yeah, and not a lot of people are playing Hidden Power of the Saiyans anymore to play on the Aboni. So that, yeah, that's one of the things. How did you play against Green? One of my greatest frustrations was actually playing around charismatic villains. So having a Trunks is necessary. It's just a defensive card when you're trying to win the game.
You just have to be more careful when you go for your chain, right? And that's one of the vulnerabilities of the Janemba chain, is the fact that if you kill any of the bodies at any point in time, you're basically the whole thing falls apart. You're not able to go from one to one. So then, like you said, you just have to rely a little bit on God Seal, or you can press enough free aggression with the deck that you could maybe be able to poke down their Unison to 1, where then you'd be able to play it out. So at that point, when you're playing against Green, you're playing a little bit more control-y, and you're probably going to have to slow down your tempo just because, like you said, Charismatic Villain and a lot of their answer cards make it very tough for you. So you just have to diversify your threats a little bit, maybe go a little bit bigger, and the pace of the game will probably slow down to a point where you're going 4-5, but at the same time, you also have Cabra, which means,
Yeah.
well times, you could definitely either force them, you can bait the Charismatic, or then you can just protect yourself for full turns.
Did you stumble upon a problem? Let me rephrase that question. What part of the deck is actually tailored for your locals in here? So we tend to play archetypes and a lot of decks when we go to events that are more spread out in their most meaningful way. But when you're actually playing in locals and you basically know what deck is everybody playing, what part of the deck was actually tailored for one of the certain peoples who will you play against?
So I actually have the benefit that the locals I play at are pretty diversified. Recently, we've had a huge bump in player base, and now we're running 20 to 30 man locals pretty often, which means there's a big diverse pool of players, and a lot of them are competitive, which means they change up their decks pretty often. But I will say the shift to more aggro was something that was a little bit tailored to my locals, because I realized that the way they were playing decks, I could punish them by being a little bit more aggressive. And I think that's really where tailoring the deck really comes in. There's two sides to tailoring the deck. I think for the meta you think you're going to see is, one, do you go with the more aggro variant, which is running the combo attacks and really pressing your opponent? If you feel like you need to be more range, then you just pull back and you bring in more babies and stuff like that, like I had in my original version. The second spot is where really the flex spots in Blue have always been. It's what 4 drops are we running. So right now I'm running a 2-2 split of Babuni and the Go tanks, because my locals tends to play a lot of stuff that flood the board and makes it really annoying. So I want to be able to deal with that by board wiping them and making life a little bit tougher. On that spot, you could always go with Maricham, or if you want to be a bit more defensive, you could be running the new Gohan that has like a million keywords.
Yeah.
So I think that's really where you have to decide where the flex spots are. How aggressive do you want to be, and that just goes into how much of the Janemba chain stuff you want to do, and then how mid range do you want to be, and that's going to be in both your unison selection as well as your forward drop slots.
I get it. So you're using Shenron's layer as a deck profile when you posted it to me. So yeah, that's a North America type of thing, but when you look at our European small scene, you will see that we are actually using Deck Planet for our profiles. Yeah, so the thing with my deck was to use Vegito because, as I said before, I did not know how to use all of the energy on my opponent's turn. So I went with him, and one of the main reasons was to give the Unison Triple Strike, because nobody takes Zeno really seriously. And then when Zeno swings, sometimes they're just gonna say, okay, no negates, no blockers, and then you just pump him out to a bazillion with the super combos. One of the main things I actually changed was the 5th Unison. I did not have a 5th Unison, and I found myself in a lot of situations where I did not draw it on turn 2 or even on turn 3. When the deck breaks, it breaks, so it falls apart right then and there. It has a little more, it's more glass cannony than the Soul Striker build that you actually showed, because if it doesn't work, it will never work. I played it I played in locals, it's okay. So you play against some of the matchups, and okay, if you go 2-1 in one of the versions, it didn't pan out. But when I play the Extravaganza, during the 2 rounds, when it bricks hard. You lose 2-0 just like that. You just can't do anything if you don't see the pieces in time. Bean was here, yeah, because it's blue. I'm not Trey Faircloth, so I don't have to play 4. But I'm also mentioning him because he was the one who featured the hit Janemba deck profile on YouTube, and I'm not for that just because he's red. I believe that a blue leader is still better for the whole archetype. And that's basically it. Nimbus Master was one of the cards that I'm frustrated about and still love it to death, because if you see it on turn 1, 2, you're golden, but if you see it on turn 4, or even when you charge it with the Zeno, you're like, oh come on, really? Out of 2 cards from the whole deck, you actually charge that. And the super combo of choice was the Trunks, and it's for me the best super combo for this kind of deck. Not in general, but for this kind, because when I used every other super combo that's active on 4 lives, on 5 lives, on I don't know, any other restrictions, it just, you need the card advantage, you need the push, so it's better.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and I think what you were talking about, the whole breaking issue, was I related to that kind of thing. I usually related to the Zamasu problem, like I said. So Zamasu, obviously a very strong leader, but the problem is that Zamasu, when you see Zeno, is a very different deck than Zamasu when you don't see Zeno, right? And like you said, when the deck feels like it's doing nothing, it really feels like it's doing nothing. And that's kind of the issue I ran into when I was shopping my version of the deck, was just like, how do we mitigate that? Because Vegito is a very strong leader, and like you said, the Unison makes it a very powerful alternate win con that people will just ignore Zeno, right? Because he gains markers too quickly, and if you just focus on Zeno, then the Vegito player is going to kill you by doing their other things.
Yeah, and you're constantly at 8 lives.
So you're very powerful, and you mitigate the fact that you're not playing a bunch of defensive cards by the fact that your leader's are already predisposed to being defensive, and you get a bunch of advantage if your opponent's trying to deal with that with all your blockers. So I love Vegito as a build. I think it's very great. But that same issue you're running to, that's exactly what I need to figure out. And even then, I'm still workshopping the deck, see what I like the most. Because I think that middle ground is where we need to be to make sure that, if we don't see what we need to see, we can still play a decent game plan.
Yeah, I mean, you can grind it out just because you're blue. But then again, when certain things just don't fall into place, you're basically stuck in the water. You're waiting for your opponent to brick at a like 3rd or 4th turn, so that you can actually do something. I managed to even come out of some stupendous situations where I just waited until turn 5 when I had a Janemba 3-drop on board just like that, because he was sitting there, I had to play a Zeno on 5 energy to board wipe everything so I can actually attack something. So, and then wait for another turn to actually progress the game. So yeah, the deck has a consistency issue, and I believe one of the main reasons is because you have to have a lot of Janemba cards, and the whole system has to actually fall into place. Because the red Broly player does not have to worry about it, because everything goes into the other things, and they have the cards, yeah, in their hand back, but everything that you actually play stays on board. So, and you still have to commit cards from your hand. So you're not going to be in a, I don't know, 15 card hand situation and then just say, okay, I'm here happy doing whatever I have to do. You're literally constantly committing to your strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope everybody had a good time while looking at our profiles. Do you have any questions for me? Because I don't for you. I think that you were speaking very clearly, and thank you because of that.
Yeah, not a problem. I'm very excited to see so many different builds. And again, thank you again for reaching out to me. I love discussing different aspects of blue, especially, and then especially this Janemba build that I've been hashing out for a while. And I'm looking forward to seeing what any of the viewers have to say in terms of what they've been working on. I've gotten so many different opinions on how Janemba works, and really looking forward to seeing where the deck, because I believe in the archetype. I just think we need to crack the code.
Yeah, I was on literally on the verge of selling the whole thing. But the things that I've learned, the Janemba leader from the set is not good for the archetype. Goku Black, as even the errated version, is not good for the archetype. So you have to find a more stable version. So yeah, that Soul Striker for me, that's Vegito. We can actually have it in view of the new Gohan leader that is going to come out in a new set. And even the Gohan 10 drop is actually a pretty fine finisher if you look at it. So it can help. Yeah, I would like to thank the people for watching us and listen to us ramble. Ramble. We were speaking really smart things, and we are scholars of blue. So I would like to invite you to look at our matchup on Espira's channel. Like, subscribe, comment. We would like to listen to you, and goodbye.